Welcome to PTCB Prep Guide. If you're here, you're in the right place. Whether you're cramming for your exam, just reviewing some key concepts, or maybe you're struggling to make sense of this topic, don't worry, we've got you. Our whole goal here is to break down complex pharmacy material into simple, clear, and easy-to-remember lessons, so you can study smarter, feel confident, and of course, pass your PTCB exam with ease.
Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to start with the big picture. What exactly is blood, and what does it do for us? Well, you can think of blood as the body's ultimate delivery service. It's always on the move, bringing the good stuff like oxygen and nutrients to every single cell. And at the same time, it's also the waste management crew, picking up and hauling away all the byproducts.
So what's blood actually made of? When you look at this breakdown, it's pretty clear it's not just some simple red liquid. What's really interesting is that over half of it, a full 55%, is this yellowish fluid called plasma. The rest is a mix of really powerful cells, and each one has a super critical job to do. So let's take a look at what those jobs are.
To really get a handle on the hematologic system, we're going to cover 5 key areas. We'll start with the core components, then we'll look at the roles of red and white blood cells. We'll figure out how clotting works, and then finally we'll go over blood types. Let's jump right in.
First up, blood's core components. Time to meet the key players in the system.
And we're going to start with red cells, what I like to call the oxygen crew.
Red blood cells are basically tiny, tireless delivery trucks for oxygen. And their secret weapon? It's a protein called hemoglobin. That's what physically grabs onto oxygen molecules. They get made in our bone marrow, they circulate for about 120 days, and then they're taken out of service by the liver and spleen. It's this constant cycle that keeps us going.
So that hemoglobin protein is absolutely crucial. It's what snags oxygen in the lungs and delivers it everywhere else. Now, why does this matter for you as a pharmacy tech? Well, because you're going to see conditions like anemia, which is a shortage of red blood cells or hemoglobin, and you'll definitely be handling medications like iron supplements or erythropoietin that directly affect their production.
Okay, next, let's look at the white cells. These are the body's bodyguards, our immune soldiers.
White blood cells, or WBCs, are your body's internal army. They're split into 2 main squads based on how they look under a microscope. You've got granulocytes, which have these tiny granules packed with chemicals to attack invaders, and then you have agranulocytes, which, well, they don't have those granules.
First up are the granulocytes, and an easy way to remember them is the fills. Now take a look at the clinical cues over in that right-hand column. This is key. Neutrophil counts shoot up during bacterial infections. Eosinophils are linked to allergies and asthma. And basophils get involved in severe allergic reactions by releasing histamine.
Next up, the agranulocytes. Lymphocytes are the specialists here. They create very specific antibodies to hunt down viruses. And monocytes, they're the cleanup crew. They actually transform into these big cells called macrophages that just go around gobbling up cellular debris and germs.
Knowing what these cell counts mean is just so important for patient safety. But what happens when a blood vessel gets damaged? Well, that brings us to our next section, clotting, the body's official repair team.
So what happens when you get a cut? That's where platelets come in. You can think of them like the emergency patch kits for your blood vessels. They aren't even really full cells, just tiny fragments floating around. The second they detect a tear, they rush to the site and start sticking together to form a temporary plug. And this, by the way, is exactly why drugs like aspirin and clopidogrel are so effective at preventing clots. They make these little guys less sticky.
But that initial plug is just temporary, right? To make it strong and permanent, the body kicks off something called the coagulation cascade. You can follow it right here on the screen. It's basically a domino effect. The platelets release a signal. That signal activates a protein called thrombin. Thrombin then turns another protein, fibrinogen, into fibrin. And fibrin is the real hero here. It creates the sticky, web-like mesh that traps cells and hardens into a solid clot, sealing the wound for good.
And for the PTCB, it's good to know that anticoagulants like warfarin interrupt that very cascade. Okay, on to our final section, which is absolutely critical in hospital settings: blood types.
So your blood type is determined by these tiny markers on your red blood cells called antigens. Think of them like little name tags. If your cells have A name tags, your body makes anti-B antibodies to fight off any B-type blood it sees. If you have B name tags, you make anti-A antibodies. And type O, which has no name tags at all, makes antibodies against both A and B.
And this is exactly why blood compatibility is a life or death situation. If you give someone the wrong blood type, their antibodies will attack it. This chart here shows who can safely receive from whom. You'll notice that type AB+ can receive blood from anyone, which makes them the universal recipient. And on the flip side, O- is the universal donor.
So the huge takeaway for the PTCB is to remember O- is the universal donor and AB+ is the universal recipient. All right, let's put it all together for a final review. You might want to pause here for a second. This is basically your high-yield flashcard for the entire system. Okay, before we go, let's do a quick knowledge check. Which blood component is primarily responsible for carrying oxygen, and what's the name of the protein that lets it do that? Take a second to think about it.
Did you get it? The answer is red blood cells, using the protein hemoglobin. If you got that right, fantastic. Mastering these core concepts is exactly what's going to build a strong foundation for your success on the exam.
We are uploading simplified PTCB topics in small, bite-sized chunks to make studying less overwhelming and way easier to retain. If you found this helpful, subscribing to PTCB Prep Guide will be incredibly beneficial. We're posting more of these short, high-yield videos on essential topics to help you study smarter and succeed on the PTCB exam.